Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith. And listen, I'm just a girl stuck in my apartment, as you can see, looking for someone, well, anyone other than my fiance, who I love dearly, to talk to me. Need some new voices, right? That's fair. So I found some people. We're talking weddings being postponed because of the pandemic. You know, I know all too well about this topic. My guest is Rabbi Josh Stanton. He's the rabbi at the East End Temple. He's also my rabbi, and he's one of the first people I called when Andrew and I had to postpone our wedding, so he's an expert on the topic. Rabbi Josh, welcome. Let's talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's talk.
So the world, wherever we are in the pandemic, as you know, right now, it's opening up a little bit. But 3-ish months ago, when we shut down, you must have had lots of dates going into the spring and summer for weddings and big celebrations you were officiating.
It was really heartbreaking to be with couples as they made the decision to postpone or to try to do some part of the ceremony online. And just now in recent weeks when it became safe, I have started to do outdoor ceremonies in a way that felt comfortable for everybody and really meaningful for couples. And what's become pretty clear as a pattern is that more is more, in that couples are doing multiple ceremonies. I just did an elopement recently, and it was literally the bride, the groom, each set of parents and their siblings, and then they're going to do another big thing next year. And that seems to be the common trend because people need something to celebrate now. A lot of people want to be married. They think, if I've been quarantined with the same person for 3 months and I love them more than ever,
Yeah.
we should get hitched.
Right.
And then at the same time,
Pass the for better, for worse, in sickness and in health tests. That test, we all get A+.
forget my premarital counseling. Just do COVID. If you can survive the quarantine,
Right.
you should
You
get
win.
married.
Okay.
I feel like this is the making of a terrible reality TV show where we quarantine a bunch of couples and we see what their relationships are really like.
No, this
And
is the best idea ever. Let's go to Bravo tomorrow. We'll produce it together.
I'm game. We should even put people someplace nice. Here is your own deserted island.
Bravo being stuck in a city where you don't have room to move around, and you can't go out, and everybody is in close quarters. No, why would you put them on an island? Everything is better on an island.
I think you might have a good point there. And also, let's give 500 square foot box to live in.
Yeah.
And give them terrifying news every single day,
Right.
multiple times a day,
Right.
and then talk about it as a couple and see how that goes.
Yeah.
And if you still love each other and can support each other, yeah, you're ready for life together.
Exactly.
And this really has been what I keep reading about and hearing about. This is a relationship accelerator. And so if you're on a really good path with your partner, your spouse, the person with whom you were spending a lot of time, it all of a sudden moves to a lifelong relationship. And if things were not going so well, things really, really do not go well, sometimes in scary ways and sometimes in more mundane ways that just indicate that this is not meant to be. So I actually, going back to the wedding
Let
idea.
any couples cancel? No, not cancel like the wedding or postpone, but say we're no longer getting married.
Yes, there's a couple I'm working with, and they have to deal with moving out of the same apartment in the middle of everything. And it is really heartbreaking. I think a lot of things just surfaced that they didn't know about each other.
Mm-hmm.
And on the one hand, it's very sad, and it adds to the tragedy and trauma that many people are living through right now. On the other hand, it probably is helpful that they did not get married,
Right.
and that instead everything came up in advance of the wedding. So I'm both incredibly grateful and incredibly sorrowful. And I think they're feeling similarly.
What did you advise to this couple for how to get through now this stage in their life, this challenge?
So I tried to provide both emotional and material support. I asked them about what their plan was, and it's really hard to come up with a plan with a person you are no longer getting married to.
Right. You don't have a future with them. So why do you have a plan?
And without being intrusive, I also inquired if some of the issues that now were coming up might relate to money, and if there are ways that we could support. Because a relationship that is no longer healthy to be in, you should in fact leave it.
Mhm.
And if a person is in any way feeling stuck for financial reasons, we need to find a way to take care of those and make sure that people are not stuck in situations that they need to exit.
When the pandemic was first ramping up, and I think a lot of people thought, no, not us, like this isn't gonna affect us. In fact, Andrew might deny this, my fiance, who probably by the time this will air will be my husband. When I asked him early March, late February, this coronavirus thing that we're all hearing about, that's not going to affect our wedding, right? And he, who can be the more negative one in the relationship, said, oh, no. I have not forgotten. So
He really, really wanted to marry you. And by the way, I take some responsibility for this. He said, Rabbi, are we going to have a wedding? And I said, unless we are actually not allowed to or not able to, we're going to have a wedding. And then lo and behold, March 13th, everyone goes on lockdown and the rest is history. But I think we actually played it well, even if it had an unexpected outcome. And I have to give the two of you credit. We're going to try to make this happen in any reasonable way possible. And if things stop being reasonable or safe for any of us, if loved ones cannot even physically attend, we're not going to do that, because that is beyond the scope of what a wedding itself in our eyes should be. And what it meant is you knew what you wanted. You knew what would make a wedding feel like a wedding for you. And then you knew what was beyond the pale, what was just an unsatisfactory outcome. And even though I can't even imagine how painful it was, you waited. And now, thank God, it looks like we're going to have an in-person wedding, and a real celebration of the sort that you are not only worthy of, but a beautiful love story like yours deserves.
Thank you. That's very sweet. We are very excited. 11 days. We'll get there. But we're prepared for, and I think something we've talked to other couples about is this is going to have a bit of a different feeling. We're so excited to get married, but it's not going to be in the way we planned. And those were tough feelings to kind of tackle and sit with. And you've been performing more ceremonies now and more marriages. Have other couples talked to you about that, having these feelings of, I planned a formal wedding, a formal ceremony and reception for hundreds of people, and now I'm going to be down to several, and this is just not what we had in mind?
I think what keeps surprising me and remains kind of a beautiful aspect is that people have very low expectations of the alternative ceremonies before hopefully they do a bigger one, or one that is closer to what they had planned when it is safe to do so. And people keep being joyfully surprised. And that's happened with bar and bat mitzvahs. That's happened with baby namings. That's happened with weddings. That's happened with all kinds of moments. So let me just read to you the text that I received from the couple who I married last weekend.
Okay.
Got married literally on an empty pier in East Hampton,
Okay.
because everyone said, why not? There's no one else out here. Said, we cannot thank you enough. You made yesterday so much more special. Our parents couldn't stop raving about how your service was amazing. It all was. We so appreciate you making the trip out here. And then kept going and going and going effusively. And in, the ego part of me is like, oh, look at me, what I did. The reality is they were more receptive than ever for a moment of joy. And people are looking for things to celebrate. And when you find something worthy of celebration, I feel that people's joy has been redoubled, that it is far more than we could have ever imagined. I didn't think that in bar and bat mitzvahs that took place on Zoom, I would see parents and siblings and loved ones crying. There was a one ceremony in which every single person on Zoom was getting a handkerchief or crying. And I think that that is just the way things are now. We are seeking human connection and hope that is real and tangible. And so I think in your wedding and in other ceremonies, there's going to be even more joy and an even more palpable sense of love for all of us to share in.
Do you find that people that are still grappling with safety concerns, health precautions, did you find that when, at the end of the day, when people got together, those fears were a little bit, subdued? Or how do you get over that?
The anticipatory anxiety was definitely far greater, even than in the most ornate and choreographed of wedding celebrations. People were so worried about the details, and then day of, things melted. They're just not used to seeing each other in person. And so even if they're wearing goofy masks, and I'm not known for particularly beautiful masks, this is my lovely blue surgical mask.
Excellent.
Even being, the masked rabbi, it felt very real. And everyone was so filled with joy just being in one place, not a large group, and being distanced. There's nothing you could have done to mess up the day. People had so much love to give and felt it with all their hearts. So I think that there are probably real lessons, not just about love, but our humanity embedded in this. One is human beings need each other. We're inherently social creatures. And after being deprived of that core need for so long, being together, it feels like a drink of water after a long time parched in the hot sun. And so there's something rejuvenating about it. Another is that love speaks for itself. When two people love each other, whatever the form that the ceremony takes, it will be filled with love. And if two people do not love each other, no matter how much I embellish a ceremony, it won't feel like a loving ceremony because it's not. And it's sort of a great equalizer. In many ways, we are the same when we come into the world. We're the same when we leave the world. And also, there is an equalizing factor that under the chuppah, no matter if it has 12,000 flowers and 100,000 people watching, or it's just you, your loved one, a clergy person, and a couple of witnesses. Real love, it manifests itself in exactly the same way.
For couples that have postponed their wedding to a much later date down the line, and no ceremony in between, they're just pushing back to maybe sometime in 2021. What is your advice for, hanging on to that joy? I mean, I know people that were supposed to get married in this, last month that are now getting married the following year. So, I know as a bride, you get so excited and everything is building. There is a crash with this. Thankfully, we've picked up the pieces. We're going to do this thing, right? But for people who are waiting much longer, or having to wait much longer, how do you advise them to keep holding on? Because we don't know where the world is going. It's the uncertainty, which is like the buzzword, is very real.
I think that the wedding industry sometimes has a toxic streak to it in that it imposes demands, especially on women, but on all people getting married, that are unrealistic, Victorian in terms of gender norms, and hold you up to a ridiculous standard that no one actually can meet. And what's really nice about this moment is that all of that ridiculousness and the industry part of weddings themselves are being thrown to the wayside. And so even couples that have to defer a very long time before their ceremony, they feel a bit of liberation, a bit of freedom. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that it will lead to changes in the marriages themselves. I mean, one of the really terrible things in a lot of marriages is that your ceremony is asymmetric and it's supposed to embody who you are as a couple. So all of the asymmetries that weren't about you as a couple might become you as a couple. And how nice that you can do away with some of those.
Mhm.
How nice that you can do away with some of the ridiculous elements that did not add to the pageantry, but did add to the stress. How nice that you can think for yourself about what would make for a day that is joyful, not one that simply meets social expectations. And so for all of the bad and all of the pain and all of the hurt, I think that there are a lot of silver linings.
Where do you see us going in terms of celebrations and gatherings as the world? I mean, we're semi-open right now. Hopefully, we're moving to becoming more open, at least in New York. I mean, and where do you see these celebrations going? How do you think things will change, whether it's for the better or worse, or just something we have to deal with?
I think we're going to see an entire shift in the way that weddings take place, a transformation in our mindset and approach to them, and probably the shattering of an industry that has become way too old fashioned and has become outdated in terms of not just its gender norms, but its raw materialism. I think we're going to see more elopements. I think we're going to see more alternative ceremonies. I think we're going to see really fun parties that don't cost a fortune, that are just people renting out a space, having a lot of food and drink with the people they love. I think we're going to see a diminution of some of the formal attire so that people don't have to spend thousands of dollars on dresses that they only wear once or suits that they maybe wear a handful of times. I think we're going to see really healthy checks on an industry that's run wild. And as much as I love some of the ornate aspects, and I have to fess up to that, I love beautiful and elegant weddings. There's a lot of beauty that doesn't cost money. And there's something to be said for that.
Is there anything you're in particular, you're missing from occasions that have, been drastically, altered because of the pandemic?
Selfishly, I miss the really great parties. And once in a while, my spouse and I make a date night of it. And right now, we are not doing as much socializing.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. You gave the fiance whose days are numbered with that title, some quiet time and a break. Because it's only been the two of us, so I've been looking for more people to talk to. So thank you for stepping in.
A total joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been Let's Talk About It. We'll talk to you next time.